ॐ सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुसाक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यश्रेयस्यानिश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्। ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविर्मयेधि वेदस्य महाणिस्तः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासिः अनेन अधीतेन अहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मावतु तद्वक्तारम् अवतु मामवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गे तुष्टवाग्वं स्वस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमि स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिपृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमस्मि द्रविणग्वं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कुर्वेदानुवचनम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Narayan Narayan everyone. So we're done with the chapter 13 quiz. Chapter 14. Back to chapter 14. Gunatraya Vibhagyo. Okay. So in chapter 14, 3 classes ago, we've just about started to understand the three gunas and their nature, right? So as the very next step, what we are going to do is we are going to understand the character of the three gunas and how they bind us, right? what is very clear and what has been made clear to us in the beginning is that, um, and in chapter 30, now that we've revised it, we'll all remember it really well, that this world that we see around us is made up of two different parts, right? There is the Maya, everything that you can touch and feel and see, whatever can be perceived through our sense of perception, that is Maya. And then there is the Brahma, right? These are the two things that come together to create this world. And there is, it seems as if like there is a union of these two elements, but in reality, there is no union, okay? There is no real union. It only seemingly feels so. And then we came to know that the reason for this confusion in us, that these two are the same, is the three gunas. They create all of this confusion. They are the reason for our delusion in the first place, the delusion that this world is real, right? The delusion that uh, the delusion of not knowing that there is Brahma, that we are Brahma. Our real identity is that of Brahma and not that of this body, mind, intellect complex. So since we understand that these three gunas are the real reason, now we need to understand them extremely well. Once we understand them really well, then we'll be able to tackle this problem, right? Then we'll be able to see how to handle these three gunas so that we can get past that delusion, right? So that's the reason now we are studying in this chapter 14, we are trying to understand the three gunas, okay? And Bhagwan Ji has told us that this knowledge of the three gunas is the supreme knowledge. Once, for somebody who understands the real nature of the three gunas, attains identity with the Lord. Why? Because once you understand the three gunas, then you are able to go past the three gunas, right? So you become gunati. Maya is composed of the three gunas, whereas the Brahma, the second component, is gunatit. It has no gunas. It is past the gunas. And that is the level at which we are expected to go to as well to be able to identify with the Lord. Okay. So chapter in the Shloka 5 very clearly says that these Traya Guna are the cause of the illusion of the union. Okay. Now we'll start with Shloka 6. Okay. Shloka 6 onwards, over the next few shlokas, we will understand the character of each of these three gunas and how they bind us. It is important to understand it. So as an example, when we think of these three gunas, we can think of them as three different chains: the iron chain, silver chain, and golden chain. Okay. We typically, like at the very basic level at this stage, I think we all understand that, okay, tamogun is something that we need to get past, right? It definitely binds. We may not know exactly how it binds or what is the real nature of tamogun, which we will understand now in this chapter, but we understand that, okay, this is not something to aspire towards, right? Then we understand rajogun is extremely important as well, right? But again, it binds, right? And we'll now understand the how Rajogun and Tamogun are so close to each other, and that we need to get past that also. But all through this time, all through the Gita thus far, we have always been saying कि Satogun में आना चाहिए. Get to the Satogun, get to the Satogun, right? Now the interesting thing that this chapter tells us is that yes, Satogun is something to aspire towards, while we are in Tamogun. We have to go from Tamogun to Rajogun to Satogun. But even Satogun binds. It is not the end goal. And now we'll understand how Satogun binds. And this would again be another example and another reason that we'll understand why it is not good enough to be good people. Being good, doing good, all of those things, when you're like, we are just good people without the without the goal of moksha is not good enough, because even when you are in Satogun, you are still bound. Even if the chain is a golden chain, a chain is a chain is a chain is a chain. Okay, so it will still bind. Now let's start to understand this a little bit deeper from Shloka 6 onwards. Kakuli, would you like to read with us?
Describing how Satagun binds the self, the Lord says,
Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat
Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat
prakashakam namayam.
Prakashakam Annamayam.
Not the right chanting. Yes, again. Okay, let's start this again. Okay. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat
Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat
prakashakam anamayam
Prakashakam Anamayam
sukha sangena badnati
Sukha Sangena Badnati
jnana sangena chanaga.
Jnana Sangena Chanaga.
Very nice.
O sinless one, of these the Satagun, the Vina is Sattva or Satagun? How do you pronounce it?
So written here as sattva.
Sattva, okay.
Sattva being pure, but when then sattva and guna put together, then it becomes
Pure Satagun. O sinless one, of these the Sattva being pure is illuminating and faultless. It binds through identification with happiness and knowledge. Binding effect of Satagun with the sense of happiness and wisdom. Amongst the three gunas, the Satagun has the quality of faultlessness. Despite this, it exercises a binding force on the individualized self, giving it an attachment with the feeling of happiness. This creates a sense of pleasure because of a liking for this feeling, even though any happiness derived from the objects of the world is only imaginary. This imaginary feeling of happiness is caused by ignorance, but when the mind has the feeling of happiness, it is an indication of the influence of Satagun. Beside the feeling of happiness, it binds with the sense of knowledge also. In fact, happiness is itself caused by knowledge. Here, knowledge connotes the sense of cognition only and not perception, which leads to self realization. The sense that one has knowledge gives birth to the sense of being happy also, and when one is attached to this sense, it amounts to being bound to them both.
So, Sato Gun is considered fruitless, and it is considered the closest guna to Bhagwanji, right? Because when you're in a space of Sato Gun, you will generally now you experience a sense of happiness. Okay, Sato Gun will give you a sense of happiness, a sense of calmness, bliss, right? So that sense of peace that comes from Sato Gun. Okay. Now, happiness, calmness, all of this is different from pleasure, right? Pleasure in general would be associated not with peace and calmness. Pleasure would be associated with a lot of sense of excitement around it, right? So that's the difference between pleasure, which is very much associated with the Rajoguni Bhav, compared to happiness that is associated more with the Satoguni Bhav. So when you're in a space of Satogun, you will experience that sense of calmness, peace, happiness, right? But this aspect is also binding. Now, how do you know it is binding? Right? So when Satogun is in ascendancy, you get attached to that idea of calmness and peace and happiness, right? And what else it says is that this happiness is also caused by knowledge. So it binds by being attached to the feelings of happiness, calmness, and it also binds by a feeling of getting more and more knowledge, right? So, but again, that knowledge is sense of cognition only and not perception. This is very important. What is the difference? The difference is that you understand at an intellectual level. Okay? All 700 shlokas of Gita, roughly. Right? That is cognition. Intellect at a cognition level, knowledge at a cognition level. I have read all the Upanishads. I have read Bhagavad Puran. I can argue. I can debate. Right? Or and it gives a sense of superiority. It's still, you are still bound to ego. Okay, it is not perception. That knowledge that you're parroting out is not translating into behavioral changes. And because it is not become you're not behaving as per that knowledge that your intellect understands, but we have not brought it into the behavior level. So it hasn't changed my perception. It is not experiential knowledge. It is only and only cognition knowledge. And because it is only cognition knowledge and it is only at the intellect level, what it does is it enhances your sense of ego. It enhances a sense of, oh, I know this and others don't know this. Oh, I am so clever and others are not so clever. And then you enjoy putting other people down. Okay. So, and in this manner, Sato Guni Bhav of acquiring that knowledge and feeling happy at that acquisition of knowledge can very quickly turn itself into Tamogun. Right? So being in Satogun is not enough, because Satogun to Rajogun to Tamogun ki wo jo journey hai, it can be very quick. For example, um, you when you're in Satogun, right? When you're doing meditation, you are in a space of Satogun. Or maybe you're going out for a walk on ECP, right? You're in a space of Satogun, really enjoying the calming waves, you're enjoying the morning walk, you're enjoying the cool breeze, you're enjoying the sunrise, right? You're going for that early morning walk, or you're doing your puja and you're really enjoying your sense of space. You go out into an orchard, you go anywhere, right? You go to a mandir, and you're very Satoguni activities at a gross level, correct? So you're enjoying this and you're feeling a sense of peace, you're feeling a sense of happiness. Okay. Now imagine you are doing your meditation and your helper comes and asks you something. See how quickly you will go from Satogun to Tamogun? Because you're very attached to that idea of calmness and peace that you're getting, or that feeling of sense of achievement that, oh, I managed to get my 1 hour of meditation done. And now somebody came and disturbed you. You did not get to your goal, even though it was a Satoguni goal. Quickly you're back into your space of Tamogun, right? Your child comes and disturbs you, spouse comes and disturbs you, immediately Satogun gone, because you're attached, right? Attached to that activity, attached to that idea, attached to that feeling. Immediately you are in Satogun, right? So this is how Satogun binds. And because you are still bound, you are still not free. Make sense?
So, okay, so I'll give a slightly different explanation. So bear with me, and if it's confusing, please feel free to just say it's not making, like we're not following. All the gunas, as we understand, they lie within us. Gunas can be only experienced. An act is not a guna. An act can bring you to an experience where you experience a particular guna. Okay, let me rephrase. Let me give you the same example, right? Our reality only exists in our mind, right? There is no, we can never truly experience another person. We only experience the perception of the other person in our mind, right? And the perception of that person gives rise to our experience within. Following so far? So there are certain, like Tuna said, there are certain actions that we can do where we experience Satogun, and those are called Satoguni. That's the experience of Satogun within us, right? And because that's the experience we get, we can also control it by having the right bhav towards every action. So between these two things is where we can experience all the gunas that come. So, for example, when you have a lot of energy to do something, or you have a goal and the passion with which you follow a goal, that will be your guna, that is the rajas guna that you will experience. The dynamism that you'll experience within, that is rajagun. In Satagun, every time, every day we experience it, whenever we feel the sense of lightness, the happiness, the peace, the fulfillment. But we know this is not real divine peace and fulfillment, because as Tuna said, this is very slippery. It's very difficult to hold on to. It slips out of our hand immediately, which is why culturally we've come to accept the norm of pursuit of happiness, because we feel it to be very slippery, right? And what the Satagun is it gives you an experience that based, it's out of the three gunas, it's the best because it's keeping you in a space of fulfillment, peace, and happiness. But you cannot be attached to the things in sansar that bring you Satagun. That peace, fulfillment, and happiness, if when it becomes devoid of sansar, is moksha. So the attachment, so Satagun is a very important guna because we should be experiencing it and focusing ourselves to bring it into our lives all the time. But don't get attached to the things that bring you to it, because that is where the downfall is. And that's why he's saying that this Sataguni happiness that is there comes from knowledge. Knowledge means the worldly cognitive knowledge. And that will always be fleeting. But when you stay in Satagun for a long time, or when you stay in Satagun and you add your Gyan ke sadhan, right, from the previous chapter, the means of perception, you add that to it, automatically you will start feeling Satagun despite your VVGP. You will start being, and that's when you attain moksha, because you use your Gyan ke sadhan to detach yourself from sansara.
Anna, you'll read for us?
The Lord now describes how Rajogun binds the individualized self.
Rajo ragatmakam vidhi.
Rajo ragatmakam vidhi.
Krishna sangam udbhavam.
Trishna sangham udbhavam.
Tannibadnati kaunteya.
Tannibhadnati kaunteya.
Karma sangena dehinam.
Karma sangena dehinam. Know rajas to be attachment, in essence born of cravings and affinities. O Kaunteya, it binds the being with an affinity for performing actions. Binding actions of Rajoguna with binding effect of Rajoguna with actions and expectations of outcome of actions. Rajoguna has been described as having the effect of creating a feeling of being bound to performance of actions propelled by desires and cravings. The strong desire to possess something new is called craving. The sense of possession of what one likes and the expectation of deriving pleasure from it gives rise to the feeling of affinity. The individualized self, being blissful in essence, is free of the sense of craving and affinity and is not subject to their binding effects. But through ignorance, cravings and affinities appear to be desirable for their own sake, and actions then undertaken for fulfillment of cravings and affinities.
This is one of the answers to question we have been asking from chapter 2 onwards. Because we were told in chapter 2 that we have to perform Karma Yoga every day. Karma Yoga, which basically means that you have to give up desires, right? And the question was, how do we handle or how do we do anything when there is no sense of desire, right? because desire seems to propel us towards action, correct? And this is where it tells us as to why that way of behavior is not correct. So, Rajogun is the guna of dynamism. It is what gets us or propels us into doing any kind of action, right? So it is important to get anything done in this world, you need dynamism. The problem is that Rajogun, an uncontrolled Rajogun, binds us by making sure that we are constantly in action. We are constantly in a space of activity. We don't have the discernment any longer as to why we are doing certain activity. And if you are not in a state of action, it creates a sense of FOMO, right? The whole concept of FOMO, the whole concept of YOLO comes from the binding effect of Rajogun. Okay? Rajogun, now imagine, okay, now you need all these three gunas, okay? By itself, none of the gunas are either good or bad, right? So let's not get into that space of judgment about the gunas, right? Oh, Satogun is good, Tamogun is bad. There's no such thing, right? All three gunas are important. If you don't have all three gunas, then the string of this nature will not get created, right? So all three gunas are important. And if you think of these three gunas as three passengers in a car. All three passengers need to be together for you to make sense, for this world to exist. They all exist for a good reason. The issue comes when out of the three passengers, you basically need one guna in the driver's seat and the other two in the passenger seat behind it. Sato guna in the driver's seat with Rajo guna and Tamo guna following it is the right way to live life. When a Rajogun or Tamogun comes in the driver's seat is when the issues start to happen and the binding effect starts to get created in a very strong manner. Okay. So, for example, when you have a sense of like you have a little bit of time, and all of us at this stage, honestly, are in a very tight grip of Tamogun and Rajogun. There are very fleeting moments of Satogun that happen in our lives. Okay. That's the honest truth about all of us. Now, how do you recognize an unbridled Rajogun in our lives? When you have a little bit of time, right? Instead of using that time for swadhyay, of just being by yourself, right? Reading a good book. Typically what happens is that we create work for ourselves, right? We'll create work for ourselves by constantly finding things to upgrade in the house. Okay. आज ये सोफा चेंज करना है, अब ये लैम्प चेंज करना है, now my bed sheets need to be changed, now I need to buy new towels, I have to buy blah blah blah, right? Like that house is a constant state of maintenance and it is a very big binding factor. Okay, if nothing else, I have nothing else to do, okay, I will find something else to occupy my time with, like for example, I'll switch on Netflix, right? Or I will end up like, okay, now let me message my friend, let's meet up for a cup of coffee. Or I will start using that time to plan another holiday, okay, or plan an outing, or plan a friends gathering, right? Constantly I am busy. Office maybe, I will always find like, keeping myself busy in some way or the other, right? Life is always busy. You ask anybody in this world, yourself and everybody around you. It's very fashionable to say I'm extremely busy. Anybody who you meet today, they will rarely anybody would say, oh, I have a lot of time on my hands, right? Everybody is extraordinarily busy. That busyness is Rajogun, unbridled Rajogun. And if we are not in Rajogun, then we get a massive sense of FOMO. Like, what am I missing out on? Right? Whether it is cultural or whether it's like this new place that's opened up that I haven't tried out, whatever, right? A new movie that has come out that everybody else has watched and I haven't watched, a new series that has come out, everybody's talking about it and I haven't seen it, a new game on Xbox that I haven't yet played, but everybody's talking about it. Now I have to play it or I have to experience it. And then I start getting into the action of planning, right? And Rajogun is now driven by what? By desires. Constantly. We have, and there are two types of desires as have been described here. One is a craving, which is to acquire new things. Okay, acquisition. You're in an acquisitive space. And the second is things that you already possess. You have a feeling of wanting to derive pleasure from it. And that these two things create a lot of desires. And those desires propel us into actions. So you keep thinking about something that creates a sense of desire, and that desire is then going to create thoughts that will then propel emotions inside of us. And those appropriate emotions at a certain stage of time is going to then propel us into actual actions. That's why controlling everything at the thought level is important. Thoughts will create emotion, constant rumination on thoughts, not thoughts by themselves. Thoughts come, they go, they don't create anything. But thoughts come, you hold on to them and then ruminate on them. You hold on to them constantly churning them in your mind. They will create emotions, then that will create action, and that will create an effect in this world. Okay. And what are the kids of these desires? The kids of desire, the children of desire are anger and greed. Anger and greed. Desire and both its kids. These three things put together are the three gates to hell. Desire, anger, and greed. These three are the gates to hell. They will lead you to a massive tamoguna. Always. That is always the end goal. If Rajogun is in the driver's seat, you will always end up in hell, self-made hell. And to control the kids, we actually have to manage the parent first. There's no point in trying to control greed and anger if you haven't controlled desires. You may control this particular the anger in this particular situation, or you may control, or you may not have an outburst of anger, even though you're seething from inside. All of those are very temporary band-aid measures. You actually have to go down to the parent level and start to look at where are your desires and what attachments are these desires creating. So in Rajogun, through these desires, there is an attachment to action itself, right? For example, an action of supposedly satoguni action of meditation itself. We can create meditation, we can create puja into a very Rajoguni activity. Okay? We can take any action in this world and we can convert it into a fully Rajoguni activity. All right. And when you are, so you will then get attached to that action itself, or you will get attached to the fruits of that action. And that attachment will be the downfall. So Rajogun creates downfall through attachment to actions, to results of actions, to desires, and by leading us to anger or greed, all of which are gates to hell. Yeah, Kakul. You're on mute.
If I have a job in hand and I don't get any remuneration out of that job, however, I know that responsibility is given to me and I really need to deliver well, because if I deliver well, it is for the betterment of some people in the society. But I will get attached to that process. I don't get anything out of it. But if I don't attach myself to the cause, and then how do I even go ahead and deliver? Then I will be like, isn't it, I will take it a bit casually. ठीक है, I mean, I'll do it at my pace. But if I don't have the desire, no, I have to do it well, because it is meant for some betterment for some people in the society. I have nothing out of it, no other desire out of it, because there cannot be any desire out of it. Is that not again? So where do I place that kind of an activity in this whole process?
Yeah. So I'll try and answer it. I may not have understood your question well enough. Okay.
Okay, I will then be a bit more specific with you. So I have to lead for the ashram the scholarship operations team, which is it's a humongous amount of job where you are responsible for choosing those kids to whom money will go out for the life of their college life, for the IITs and all the where we have the program running. Now I really sit like a office and place a part of my time to do that. I'm very attached to what I'm doing, but I have nothing out of it. I don't get any money. It's not that I will get a extra meeting when I go to the ashram with Swamiji. Nothing. There is nothing like that, and it's not that I'll get a room also when I go to the ashram. I'll be treated like any other. But there is a huge attachment that if I don't do it, I will not deliver it well. Like I can't detach myself. Is that also Rajoguni or it is not a Rajoguni activity?
So I think, yeah, I think you're using the word attachment in a different meaning here, right? The word to use here is I am driven by the purpose of my action, not the outcome. So the purpose of why you're doing this is because you are helping give back to society and make a betterment for children in India. That's the purpose.
Okay.
Now you're doing your action with that bhav and with that purpose. Attachment will come then when if you've done something and the other person, I mean, as with any plan, right? If 100 is supposed to go to that person, maybe 80 went. And maybe that child, instead of studying, then started bunking college and doing something else. And then if you started getting angry and saying, I did this, I did that, that in that case, that would be attachment because you're attached to the outcome. But
Okay.
because we are in this body and we have to do karma yoga, we have to do karma, kaam to karna hai, we have to do work. We do it with the right bhav and the right purpose. Because we have to be driven to doing things, right? But that drive has to be based on purpose, and the bhav with which we do everything is lok sangra, seva.
Okay.
And then I'll step back one more thing, right? When we talk about what are we getting out of a situation, if we feel that there is an attachment, right? You may be using the word wrongly, as Abhinav suggested, but if you feel, right, and you're the best person to figure that out, but if you feel you're attached to a situation, you need to know what you're attached to and why you're attached to it. There must be some kind of desire, however deeply seated, however nicely couched in whatever beautiful clothes, but there must be a desire somewhere. Okay. And what you get out of something is not necessarily always money, right? Money is the most obvious way of getting compensated. But in most interactions of our life, most activities of our life, we are constantly seeking remuneration, which is not monetary. Okay. It may be recognition. It may be some sense of gratefulness. It may be a sense of acknowledgement. It may be a sense of uh, us feeling ourselves that I am so good. If not from anybody else, you get a sense of acknowledgement from yourself that I'm pretty good. Look, I'm doing all of these things, right? And that sense of superiority itself is a kick for ourselves, right? So there is 100% going to be some or the other attachment. I can guarantee you that, because the stage of development we all are at, we will go from attachment to attachment to attachment. It's just that the kind of attachment will become subtler and subtler and subtler. And it is our job to keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper to cleanse ourselves, right? The most obvious ones will go away, and then you will discover a second layer of attachment. So you will clean those, then a third layer, then a fourth layer. That's the journey, that's the progress. But at the root cause is always some or the other desire for some sort of something. Okay, we get something out of it. When we say that I do something for someone else, it never is for someone else. It almost always at this stage is about ourselves. Okay, I do something for Abhinav because it makes me feel happy to see him happy. That's also for myself, my happiness. You know, so that's what I'm saying कि वो होता है, attachment होता है हमको, कहीं ना कहीं desire होती है of some kind. ठीक है? If nothing else, it becomes that feeling of happiness that I gave something, and I feel that happiness that comes from being a giver of something. वो भी एक अटैचमेंट है, दैट इज अ सतोगुणी अटैचमेंट. ट्रस्ट मी, है अभी हम सबके लेवल पे है.
And that's also ego,
That's
maybe.
ego. That's all
Yeah.
ego driven. है ना?
Yeah.
So now how do you escape this, right? So first is this. Second is being aware कि यार at this stage, then how do you go about it? Is exactly what Abhinav explained. You need drive, right? There is no denying that. The desires are supposed to be there. तो क्या desire होनी चाहिए? You can't say I will not have any desires, because that's not possible. The way the world works is that there is an engine, and that engine needs a fuel. And that fuel and engine, if you don't have it, it's not working. You will not move forward. That's the design of the world. Okay, so you can't escape that design. You can't say I'll do away with it. You need it, but then the driver has to be the higher purpose. Okay, that's our journey. Right? So you start where if in any space of our lives we find ourselves in Rajogun, which is driven by very selfish desires, we start to expand them step by step, everything step by step, right? We expand it to say, okay, now I will do it for larger purpose. I'll do it for my family. I will try and like give up my own sense of self, and I'll do it for others and start to get my sense of pleasure and happiness from seeing others happy around me. So I start with my family. Then I expanded to my friend circle. Then I expanded to my small communities. Like I'll do something for my alma mater. I will do something from some other community that I identify with. So I start doing that. And that's how I slowly start to increase my communities. And I start doing things for others. I start giving up sacrificing some of my time and resources for others. Right? That's how we increase our daira, right? Our limitations. Okay, and we get driven by a sense of purpose that is higher than my own little self or my own little family, right? So that's how we go up the curve. First, today our life goal is, right now for the time being, stage goal, not life goal, stage goal is to make sure that we identify where Rajogun is in ascendancy, where Tamogun is in ascendancy, or where where tamogun, rajogun, or satogun is in ascendancy, and try and change every time so that the purpose is satoguni for all my actions. The goal is a satoguni goal, and my bhav are satoguni bhav. So that satogun remains in driver's seat and controls my rajogun and controls my tamogun. Only when we completely get to a satoguni bhav, then we prepare ourselves to go gunati. Abhi wo space nahi hai, stage nahi hai. Okay, so getting back to being practical right now, we have to try and make sure that satogun is in the driver's seat. So, for example, in your case, Kakoli, you are doing a satoguni activity, right? Make sure that when we are doing it with the right purpose. So your purpose is correct, right? And your bhav is correct. And as long as you're doing with that bhav, that becomes a driver of your action. So this is exactly what we've read in Karma Yoga, that even though you are not personally going to benefit out of it, that doesn't mean that you will not do actions. Actually, if you start doing actions which are duty bound, you're doing them because that's the right thing to do and because that is your duty to do, and it becomes your duty because you've taken on a certain responsibility, right? You're doing it out of a sense of duty and not because you're getting something out of it. Swami ji ne mere ko meeting nahi thi, unhone mujhe room nahi diya. You know, if all of those things beset us, then obviously it will beset our entire activity. But when we are acting out of a Satoguni Bhav, then none of these things matter. Then you will do, and what you're doing, you're continuing to do your duty no matter what else happens or what the results of the action are. And that type of drive is the strongest drive. That type of drive ensures goals are reached, actions are created, and results get created in the best possible manner. And that was the essence of Karma Yoga, that you don't need personal small desires to propel us into action and to create, right? These type of larger goals where we can remove ourselves from petty desires to larger, more noble desires, right? and we take care of the whole, then we get taken care of it as an adjunct, because we are part of that whole, is what is Karma Yoga. That is what Karma Yoga is teaching. It's not saying don't be like desirelessness ho hi nahi sakti. Desire is a very important component of how to make the nature work. It's just that we need to transmute selfish desires into more selfless or more wholly encompassing desires where others benefit as well. For example, in negotiations, we talk about a win-win situation. Like that is like a way of negotiating, which is where you sit in a space of satogun and not in a space of tamogun. I want to hurt somebody else. I want to make sure he loses. You're not acting from a space of rajogun where like I must win everything and I don't want to leave anything on the table for the other person. But from a space of satogun, you're negotiating from a space of satogun where it's a win-win solution. Right? Does that help to understand a bit more?
So
Go on.
on Rajagun, I'll just share 2, 3 other things, right? One is this cultural conversation that exists, which I just referred to, is pursuit of happiness, right? So first things, actually, no, before that, all of us should become fully aware that out of the 3 gunas, all of us are more likely to have a very high proportion of rajagun, than satagun and tamagun. So like Tuna mentioned, even when we are doing a sataguni, an activity which gives rise to satagun, the attachment will seep so quickly for us because we have a rajaguni nature of getting attached to everything. Because since childhood or since this sansar, the way it is today, we are constantly being told, go after your likes. Ichha hai to karo, nahi karo. Right? Do what you like, find your passion, do what you love. Right? All these cultural norms has given a lot of rise in Rajaguni activity for all of us. Right? Now, in a Rajaguni activity, this cultural norm of pursuit of happiness is the center of it. But if you reflect on this a little bit, you basically mean your starting point is always sadness. That's why you're pursuing
Sadness
happiness.
and incompleteness.
Pursuit of happiness, matlab, I'm going towards happiness. That means, where am I standing today? I'm standing at a place where I'm not complete. I'm standing at a place where I feel insecure. My insecurities are driving me. I'm fine. I'm standing in a place where I'm feeling sad, unloved, unattached, all of those things. So the cultural norm is, let's go pursue happiness.
Acquire happiness.
Let's go acquire happiness from outside. And that then says, okay, I'm not complete. I'm not happy right now. So let's see what my heart desires. My heart desires this, heart desires that. Heart desires a good meal. Heart desires I achieve whatever promotion, this money, whatever investment. Heart desires all these things. When I get that, I'll be happy. In the course of 14 chapters, we understand that to be the greatest fallacy.
I mean, from our own lives, right? Every time one desire gets fulfilled, it only creates a plethora of new desires in its way. You only feel happy in that one small moment when that desire has been fulfilled. And the reason we become happy is not because the desire got fulfilled. We become happy in that moment because the cloud of a desire has been removed and I can be in touch with myself directly and experience the happiness that exists within. And then again, another set of clouds comes with like those 20 more desires, and then that happiness is gone because I have covered it. Avratam of the desires. Right? We had done that in chapter 3.
So yeah, our natural predisposition is Rajagun. And because
no, not natural.
we have the largest guna that we probably have is Rajagun, and with Rajagun, it observe the number of desires we give rise to within ourselves on a daily basis. Desires leads to other thing. My heart desires that, oh, let's go to a nice restaurant for a meal, right? Um, if that desire is not met, what happens? Gives rise to anger,
Upset.
irritation, frustration, negativity. If that desire is met, then you're like, next time you will be like, I don't want to go to that restaurant. No, I want to go to a fancier restaurant. What happens? Greed. So the two children of desire is anger and greed. So, yeah, I think Tuina already covered it. Haan ji, Kavita.
Just one thing I have read, that is the difference between the attachment and connection. So when there is me in the picture, then it is attachment. When there is others in the picture, that is connection. So when we are others in the picture, that is where we are giving, we are becoming a giver. When there is the attachment, we are takers. So that is the kind of like, Satogun, and how, we come from the space of completeness when we are giving, when we are connecting. That's what just I.
It's a beautiful example. And Kavita, so this is actually what she's given us as a cheat sheet to know when we are doing something, whether we are doing it out of Rajogun or out of Satogun, who's in the driver's seat. When we are in that space of giving and where the other person is in the picture and you're doing things for their benefit only, and you're not thinking of yourself and what you will get out of it, then Satogun is in the driver's seat. So that's your cheat sheet to follow. But again, keep your guards up and keep looking out, because after your first level of INS minus goes, a second level of subtler INS minus will come in, and then a third level, and then a fourth level. So we have to keep digging, cleansing. And as we keep going higher in our journey, the higher we go, the faster and more swift the fall is also. Yeah.
One last question, because now you are a mother, you have a teenage daughter at home. Like Avinav was saying about restaurants. So you may not want to go to a good restaurant, but you have to align to, because she is not there yet. And so you have to go. You may want to sit at home and do something, maybe, but you have to do those duties also. So that comes from what, which, which space? Like it's desire or it's duty, or was the blur out there? Like, because you enjoy also when you go, it's not, but you can do without it. But when you go, you do enjoy, and you're doing it initially. You need to do it because you have to also align yourself to your family.
So I'll tell you with family, no, my observation, and Tuina is very uh, quick to point it out with me, is Vedant's innate desires are very much mimicked by my desires. They pick up things. So initially, when he's small, it's about what I want him to experience and I want him to like it. So as a parent, a child first starts following a parent's desires. Now, as a parent will grow on this journey, which is why children coming on this path with the parent uh, is is uh, is very powerful. As the parent goes through a spiritual journey where they start focusing inwards, um, it is your responsibility as a parent to have conversation with your kids on purpose. ऐसा नहीं कि fun नहीं करो, ऐसा नहीं कि you will stop going out to restaurants and all of that, but do it with the purpose of having fun. If you all go to a restaurant, which we see sometimes, where the whole family is sitting on the phone, then why are we doing in the restaurant? Then we may as well sit at home and watch TV or whatever, right? But if you're going to a restaurant, how do we make it a memorable, fun experience for us to remember? Or are we going to a restaurant to try a new cuisine, to try and explore a different flavor from a different part of the world? Like, all of these are wonderful experiences to share with your family, right? But it becomes bhog when you just do it blindly.
And again, like I think it's difficult to give a one size fits all answer for that particular query, because the context for the same person will vary from one situation to another, right? So there will always be differences in temperaments of four different members in a family. Even two people living together, they will have two different temperaments and things that they want to do, like to do, whatever, right? One may have, and everybody will be on their own spiritual journey, which will take us at different speeds. You can't expect two people to even if they are together on the journey, they will not grow at the same speed in all directions, right? So you will always have to make space for other members of your family, and do that with a sense of, there will be an element of sacrifice when you're living in a family, sacrifice of your own likes and dislikes. But when you are giving in to somebody else, always ask what is the purpose. Like there is a restaurant as an example, right, that we took up. Somebody in your family wants to go to a restaurant and insists that everybody should go. The first question, they want to go to a restaurant. Can they go to the restaurant by themselves? What is the purpose? Why do they want to go to the restaurant? No, they want to go to the restaurant not by themselves or with their friends or other members. They want you along specifically. Why do they want you to go along specifically? There must be a reason, right? So understand the reason and then make sure that that reason is appropriately expressed in that moment. If we end up going to the restaurant and we're all sitting like feeling upset or angry that I didn't want to do, I wanted to do something else, and now you're taking me there, and we've not created that conversation, will lead to a tamoguni experience, right? So it depends situation to situation, right? As an example, last night, Abhinav had stepped out for Abhinav had stepped out with Vedant to play, and then it started to rain. So he ended up at somebody's place with whom like these kids were supposed to go out to play. And then they just ended up like playing together, and he was just there with those guys in the evening. And he called me up to say, "Oh, I'm here, and come over and join us." But I was not in a space to join them. I wanted to do my own thing at home, and I was just happy for the quietness in the home, and I was doing my own thing. And then he calls up again, which I ignored. I was like, I don't want to go. I just want to be here. I didn't take the call. And then they called up on my helper's phone, and then they got to me over the phone, and then they insisted that they come. And my initial experience was that of annoyance and upset and anger, that Abhinav just keeps cornering me into these situations. If he wants to socialize, why doesn't he just keep to himself? Like, go enjoy. I'm not asking you to sit at home. But then why do you have to drag me everywhere? Why can't I get my own quiet space? Like, why does he have to like constantly like make this? That was my space of real bad irritation and anger and annoyance. Okay. And then I was like looking at myself and I was like, okay, so what am I supposed to do now? And he's made me talk to the hosts. And the hosts are calling me like, no, you have to come. Khichdi saath mein le aao. Saath mein yahi saath mein khayenge. Don't worry. Like, really, really pushy. And then I started to ask myself, like, what am I angry about? Am I angry about the pushiness of this? That, you make an opportunity available to me. I will take it if I want to. And if I don't want to, don't push me into it. I'm actually getting upset because I'm being pushed into it. So it's a question of likes and dislikes. Right? It's not that I don't want to hang out with them. I really like those people. And we have a lot of fun every time we hang out. In this moment, my anger is about not being in control. That anger is because I'm not in control. I am not choosing that situation. Okay, I am not choosing to hang out. They want to hang out with me. They're pushing me into it. Okay, it's a matter of control, which is causing that anger and annoyance, right? Then I ask myself, so what is the right thing to do? If they are all insisting that I come out with them, I've not been out with them for a long time. It will create a happy moment of like this thing. Yes, I want my own time and space. Can I go there and spend an hour and create a nice, happy Satoguni space, right? And come back. So I went to shower, I got ready, and I was still like, I was really like, thinking this through in my head, and like, there are two arguments happening constantly, but I'm getting dressed because I already know that's the right thing to do, right? To like get ready and I have to go there. But I'm still angry and upset, right? There's this one noise that's like really upset and angry at like not getting my space. And there's really another voice that's telling me it's the right thing to do, and like, arguing that whole thing out. And then I was like going there and I was like, see, right now, the gunas are creating that situation. VVGP has been created where I have to go and I'm going. Now, if I'm going to go there and I will sit there with my, face pouted and I'm going to be upset at the whole thing, I am doing what I'm supposed to do, what my VVGP is making me do, but I'm doing it from such a tamoguni space. तो क्या किया? इससे तो अच्छा करो ही मत. इससे तो अच्छा call them up and very clearly tell them, guys, thank you for the invitation. I really cannot make it. Okay, I am doing something important that I need space for. I'm sure they'll understand. Either you do that, give them that acknowledgement, and you come down in your Satoguni space and you do your own thing. Or create a space in yourself where you can go and enjoy the situation. You can't be doing it and be upset about it, right? So then between the two, I chose to go and go there with in a space of Kia. I am happy to spend 1 hour here. I will spend 1.5 hours, but I'll be happy and then I'll come back. Okay, there are only two ways to do it, but I have to do it in a way where now I'm choosing the situation, right? So that's an example of something that we experience on a very regular basis.
Good, she didn't give the example from 1 hour ago.
Okay. What 1 hour ago?
Nothing, joke tha. Okay, very recent example. Na? It happens all the time. Experiences.
Okay, bad joke. But let's move.
Okay, Tuna, we should wrap up.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, so we'll close the class a little bit early today after these two, and we'll start with Tamogun in the next class. We'll go through a quick round of takeaways. But importantly, let's use this week to do our Swadhyay, where we try and identify moments of where there is ascendancy of Satogun and where there is an ascendancy of Rajogun, right? And see if there is a difference in the times of the day when we experience this, or what situations create more Rajogun than others, what we eat or don't eat or do, or thoughts or places or people, like understand how Rajoguni we are, or what causes ascendancy of Rajogun in us. Just try and understand that for ourselves this week.
Takeaways. Let's go.
Yes, Sanjita.
Yes, Sanjita.
So I think, what really stood out, what you said, and, it's something that I would like to ponder and think about, that pursuit of happiness, which really means like, the take to it was very different. That if you're saying that we want to pursue happiness, which means what state are we currently in? Are we operating from a space of sadness? We've never really thought it that way. And I think that is my takeaway. Like, everything is just that the polar opposite to what I want to achieve. What is it that I'm right now? I think the moment I start to identify those, I think it'll give me directions and it'll tell me, what is it that I need to change, or what is it that I need to, strive for. So I think this was a very, very good example. I've never thought of it in this manner at all, ever.
हाँ कविता.
So we have to catch hold of our gunas in the thought level, and also we have the control of the gunas through our bhav. So that is the main takeaway for me. And also one point I really liked is this win-win situation for everyone. So when we are putting in the situation, it's like, we have to see whether it's one-sided, it is only for us, or it is win-win, kind of, both the sides, what we are kind of helping others at the same time. It's like, helping us also. So that point I really like. Yeah, thank you.
For me, the takeaway is to in every situation to kind of understand if I'm operating from the space of selfish desire or selfless desire. As Tuina said, desire will always be there. So with that, if it's selfless, I'm good to go. If it's selfish, I have to really contemplate and see how to change. It's not going to be easy, but yeah, that's what I'm going to do henceforth. Yeah.
Yeah. And ultimately, the only desire to have is a desire to attain Bhagwanji. The desire to know that Bhagwanji, I am you. Right?
Shall I go?
Yeah.
So, takeaway for me is that gunas are the experience and not the action. So, just to keeping that in mind always, like don't judge the action as gunas, but keep it at the experience level. And of course, what the definition of moksha you gave, which is the peace experienced irrespective of the VBGP, that is moksha. That would be my takeaway.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next.
I can go next. I think the current state where there is pursuit of happiness is a real objective. That should not be the one. It should be more about feeling the bliss of it rather than. I mean, that's what you are trying to say, right? That pursuit of happiness means we are operating from a level of sadness or incompleteness, and that should not be the space to start with. So it should be more towards feeling the bliss, and being bliss could be experienced with the win-win situation in every uh, any experiences that we are going through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you don't do actions for happiness. You do actions out of happiness. Right? So you are not incomplete today and you need to acquire some material thing, or you need an acknowledgement from someone else, or you need an award from somebody for you to be whole and complete. You operate from a space that however I am as of now, I am whole and complete. Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamidachite. Right? I am whole and complete. And no matter what I give away, that completeness will remain complete. How much ever love I may give away, how much ever money I may give away, how much ever work, how many resources, whatever I give away, how much ever time I may give away, I don't become a pauper. I remain whole and complete all the time. And I'm happy because I'm whole and complete. Unhappiness only comes from a space of incompleteness, from a space of abhav. Then we become a beggar. Then we ask Bhagwanji for alms because I'm incomplete. Then I'm always praying as a beggar. And when I am a beggar and my prayers are that of a beggar, my the way the beggar begs is in a very fawning manner, in a very subservient manner. Okay. The difference in the prayer where you come from a space of whole and complete, and I am Bhagwanji's child, then you ask Bhagwanji or you talk to Bhagwanji like your child talks to you. When child asks you something and a beggar asks you something, can you see the difference in the way they approach you and the way they talk to you and the way they demand something? Right? A child demands things of you as his birthright and he expects you to give it to you. A beggar always thinks that the most likely you will not give it to him. You're full of doubt and is always being very subservient, very, in a very fawning manner. And he'll heap lots of praises on you, which are very, this thing that he'll talk very sweet to you, even though he feels no sweetness inside. He may, and the more, if you give or if you don't give something, he'll immediately turn very upset with you, right? So there is that difference. And that is the difference that we ourselves experience on a daily basis when we act out of happiness. We do something out of happiness, and just that process of doing something or that action itself is complete in itself. I'm happy with that. There is no attachment to end outcome. As long as I'm doing something, I'm doing it with a feeling of being whole and complete and happiness. Versus when I'm doing something as a beggar, when I'm incomplete and I'm unhappy, now I'm doing something to acquire things from outside. And that whole action is towards acquisition of something subtle or material or whatever, right? And when I don't get it, makes me even unhappier or angry or upset or irritated. Or if something gets in the way of my actions, will make me irritated as well. Make sense? So whenever we complete our course and we do that, when we finish our class and we do Purnamada, Purnamidam, that's something for us to always like really do it with full conviction that I am whole and complete. That's how we close the class. Thank you. Visalakshi, you wanted to share?
My takeaway is that what the three gunas we are experience day to day life on every situation. But you said whatever gunas we are experiencing, but the driver should be the satgun. Then if without attachment, the satgun also, there is a lot of activities with attachment. There is no point. So without attachment, just to be do our duties. Driver to driving the car through the Satgun. If you do the Rajagun also, the Satgun should drive the Rajagun action. And then whatever it's if the Satgun, if it is guiding, then there will be some control, some calmness within you when that driving is happening. But without that, then whatever it uncontrollable, that I can. So I would like to apply for all the situations.
Yeah. Okay. Rituj, go ahead.
Okay, no, you go ahead, Bhagishi.
Okay. So I was saying that we learned today how Satagun is also like that is also coming from a feeling of attachment to let's say happiness. So just going out for happiness will also create attachment, and that we have to think what our thoughts are, Satogun, Rajagun, or Tamogun, and everything is so subtle that one thought can be Satogun, and the next thought itself after 1 second can be Rajagun and Tamogun. So these things are really subtle, and the Swadhyay which you said for this week, right? I'll try that, but now I have understood that it's really subtle. It can change within a second also. That's what I have experienced until now. So let's see.
Correct. So while Satogun binds, for the time being, our goal is to just make sure that we elevate ourselves from Tamogun and Rajogun to Satogun. How to get past that is a different matter altogether. It's enough for us to know that even Satogun binds and how it binds, why it binds, and be aware of that binding nature. But for us right now, our goal is to just stay in Satogun for the largest part of the day. Right? Ultimately getting to a space where only in Satogun, everything that we consume and we experience and we think and we feel is in from a space of Satogun eventually, right? Once we get there, then we'll talk about the next step. For now, that's it. This is the step to go to Satogun.
For me, already these takeaways have been mentioned, so it's just but two things that that I took out from the class, which was that experiencing the perception that I have of other people, which isn't the reality, but it's just a perception of what when I see other people. So that's something I want to be mindful of. And the three gunas and which guna is going to be in the driver's seat, I have to be mindful of that. And when we were discussing about attachment and connection, which Kavita had mentioned, in that also it's been mentioned in chapter 2 about what I thought of was attachment and love, and the difference between the two, where attachment is where you do something from a person, you expect something, or a incident, or a circumstance. but love is you don't expect anything in return. And the example which was used was of a father and a son, that if a son is ill, then a father will go to any possible extent to take care of the son, not thinking what a father or a mother would go through any possible extent to whatever personal things are going to happen to them. They'll just take care of it. But if they uh, bring up a child hoping that when he grows up, he takes care of them in the old age, that's where the attachment comes in. So I thought of that when you were discussing.
Okay, closing shlokas.
Thank you so much. We'll do closing shlokas.
People. Om Sarvesham Swastirbhavatu Sarvesham Shantirbhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu
Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhave Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Om
Narayan, Narayan, everyone.
Who's this?